Hey guys, happy Tuesday. We're off to some kind of rip-roaring start this morning. So the loony in Moscow has decided to do some saber-rattling again. He pulled his favorite trick out of his hat and or out of somewhere and decided to, threaten to use nuclear weapons if anyone dare to return the military force that he's deploying against them. And God forbid that someone should come back at him over it. But so the result is the market tanks right out of the open, right? 400, 500 points on the Dow. Everything looks like it's going to hell in a handbasket. Turn around, and what we all know is he makes these threats a lot. So over the last 6, 7 years, we've heard this stuff over and again, and the result's always been the same. It's rhetoric. It is a threat. I sincerely doubt he's looking to end the world. And as a result, since everybody else feels the same way, what we saw is a big bounce in the market this morning. So really big recovery. I think that the saber rattling from Moscow, that is a go-to strategy when you're looking for a reason to get long the market first thing in the morning. Now, I think on the triple Qs, the downside of this whole thing has been when you get those spikes and they're straight up like that. I mean, unless you're catching it right on the open and you're saying, I'm not going to wait for it to consolidate. I'm not going to wait for it to pull back. I'm just going to get in and put a stop a few ticks below on the NQ or on the ES. Then what happens is the market can get away from you, and when it gets away from you, it's real hard to figure out where am I getting in, where am I going to be cautious about this thing. I was just talking to my friend Eric in the room, and we were saying the same thing about a move in Tesla. All of a sudden it takes off, and now if you get in the middle of that range, then what happens is, you start thinking money stop instead of logic stop. You start looking at where am I in relationship to my entry instead of where am I in relationship to the entry I should have taken. And then what you do is you start putting very unnatural stops. Right in the middle of a travel range, you'll have a stop. And the fact of the matter is, travel range is just what it says. Travel range. It's not support. It's not resistance. So price tends to fluctuate in there. And when it does, you're going to be stopping out, stopping back in constantly. So the best thing to do if you miss a plateau, if you miss a support and resistance level, is just let it go. Just let it go on through, and you've got plenty of time to look for other trades. So just let them come back to you. So with that said, let's take a look at those triple Qs first, and just sort of see what we're talking about here. It is. It's still taken off. If you look at it, you are way up into the range, and you can see that those channels are just sloping higher. So, when things are sloping up like that, it's generally speaking, it's going to be, more difficult, let's say, to get in front of the opportunities and have them make sense. But if you're looking at this right here and you say, what am I going to do? Geez, it came down first thing in the morning and then it just popped higher. The best thing to wait for is a move back down into this range right here. So you can see that, I've got an anchored VWAP. It's way back here. That's the big chunk of the trend that we saw this morning is what went on right in there. If you're looking for an entry, as I am, I'm looking for another retest of this threshold level here. So I want to see it come down below that O spot 84 line and then take a tick up and come back up through the line. I prefer to see really something, that at least tests half of this range below there, because that's going to be the deciding factor on whether or not it's a good trade or not. Does it get below that low? That would wind up stopping you out, and on the NQ, that would be actually a pretty hefty stop. Keep an eye on these guys right here. If they start tracking sideways as we're coming into this 502.53 level, if they start going sideways on the volatility bands there, on the 2SD volatility bands, then we've probably got a good opportunity here to look at this range. So if the range starts happening and we're moving back and forth in there, that's sort of a different trade than this thing where we're just moving straight up. Okay, if it does start making the sideways channels, it'd be especially nice if it was up in the pivot, and then if this bottom line here would just move a little bit higher. So we probably want to see that bottom threshold line, come up into about there. That would get it into that volume by price cluster. And, you know, I think that sets us up for some pretty decent NQ trades. Had a bunch of people asking me about the NQ today because I trade that with some, you know, with some partners on a project that we're working on, and that is exactly what I told them. You know, my strategy was going to be for, you know, for what we're doing together. Now, we just had some trades on Apple, and I was just saying to the guys in the room, if you're not in the room, get in the room, for goodness sakes. 229.34, and you know, the initial target on that was up at 230.11, but after we started looking at it, I was talking again to Eric about this one, and I just, you know, it hit me that that extension that we're looking for up to the pivot line, that really wasn't tested very often. So we just had one test up there, and you know, the lion's share of what's going on has been in here. So I've been trading it. I'm going to do sort of larger shares the next time around and just try to pick up the 35 cents per share. You know, maybe get $350 or $700 out of a little pop, do it a couple times and just be done with it. Amazon, you know, this guy needs to get back down into the range. So if we get back down at a 203.32, then I think it's a decent setup to just grab it on a pop higher. If it doesn't get back down there again, I'm going to pass on that one. Google has been just real solid. I know Julie was trading this earlier with you guys. For me, this run that it's doing right now just kind of takes it off the table. If it comes back down into 178.53, which does not look likely at this point, but you know, if it gets back down into here, then we've got a good chance of testing support there. And if it does, then, you know, I'd probably take it right off that black pivot line, that R2 pivot line. But if it doesn't, then I'm just going to let her go. On Meta, we were looking at this one, and this had high hopes of getting right up to there and then coming back down to the pivot, but no dice. It has gone and extended, and I think that, you know, the thing to do now is let's focus on whether or not we've got a VWAP on that trend line. Let me just set that up for you here. If we can get a VWAP that says, yes, okay, so it lines up 555.41. So if we get back down into this support and this volume by price cluster over here, then, you know, I think that come into here and all that stuff lines up right there, then that gives us, you know, a good opportunity to just sort of play this range. Because on Meta, that's a pretty decent swing, 555.41 up to 556.28. So probably going to be fewer shares on that one just because the dollar value of the shares you're trading, but I think there's an opportunity there. Microsoft is actually getting off my screen here, so let's pull that back down so we can see what's going on there. Same kind of a thing, right? We're getting a second wave, and you can see here that, you know, we've got anchored VWAP right there on the bigger move, and then we're going to be even higher on this one. So somewhere in that range, you know, let's see if we get boxed up, if we get some support and resistance. Right now, that is not something that I am particularly excited about. So all of these have stalled on the chart refreshes. But NVIDIA would have to come and, you know, set up a trading range right in here somewhere. Let's see how high it goes. It's already extended beyond the second resistance. If it comes back down and it gets down into that black pivot line there, I think we've got something we can work with. Tesla's been great, and Tesla is the one that we just went over in the room, and I was saying, you know, this is the travel range. So the travel range here is 343.48 up to 346.11. And if that travel range happens, that's fantastic, okay? But if you miss it, then, you know, what I would tell you for me anyways is I'm not looking to get in the middle of that range ever, because what I was referring to when we were just talking about this a second ago is, let's say you get in right there and you're looking for this move up to this top line. It's still a decent move. It's got enough on the base of it. It's got enough that you'd be, oh, you know, I'm going to make some money going up there. But any little wiggle is going to tell you that you're wrong and you have to get back out again, when in reality, this thing hasn't done anything wrong. It's traveling higher, and your stop really, should be down below your entry threshold, the entry that you should have taken, not the entry that you did take. So, those are always hard things for, for people to wrap their head around. It's, it's all about where did you plan to get in, and then, what did you actually do? So what did you actually do is a tough one, because you're thinking, man, I'm missing something here, and then it goes without you, and it happens to everybody, right? It happens to me too. I've jumped on momentum as often in this here career as any of you probably will, and it's always the same outcome, right? Story has a beginning and end, and a bunch of stuff in the middle you're gonna hate. I tell people that all the time. That's one of my favorite trading stories. Is you're not gonna like what happens, I guarantee it, if you don't follow your rules, because you can't play the game the way that you're supposed to play it. Okay, so I think that that's it for today. We're gonna wrap it up and go back to the room. If you guys have questions, I know a bunch of people sent me some questions about trading ES and trading NQ. That's great. I prefer if you text them to me, but because I'm not going to check email constantly over the course of the day. But if if nothing else, you can text or pick up the phone and just give me a call, and I'll go over them with you. All right. I hope you're having a great trading day. Easy on the trades, because today is like I said, a little bit different. We've had some geopolitical stuff, and you know how I feel about geopolitical news in general. It is not the best environment to trade in. So wait definitely for the best setups to come to you. Have a good one.